So you work with a lot of unusual varietals up here in Washington State. What made you choose the varietals you did? And do you have a favorite or one that's most difficult to work with?
Well, initially, when went to plant the vineyard, I wanted to bring in some unusual things to give me some new challenges because I'd made oceans of Cabernet and Merlot and Chardonnay and Riesling, Syrah, and everything else that Washington had to offer. And in the start about the year 2000, I was advising other growers to start putting in other varieties. So I got growers to round out their Bordeaux varieties by adding Malbec and Petit Verdot, of course, and then get them involved with other grapes such as Tempranillo and whatever else I could find at the time. And then when it came my turn, they had a lot more to offer in the nursery books. A couple entities had been importing grapes and propagating them for quite a while. And of course, when you're bringing in new varieties from Europe, it is a long process. They have to be indexed, which means they have to be proven to be disease-free. And then they have to be propagated in quantities enough to start supplying the nurseries so they can supply someone who wants to put in a vineyard. So most of the varieties I was able to get my hands on were actually pretty small quantities. They had enough for maybe an acre or a half acre of this and that at the time. And I was intrigued by bringing in the Carmenere, which was the missing Bordeaux variety. Mm-hmm. Wanted to have a couple different whites, the Viognier and the Picpoul Blanc. Viognier, everybody seems to have jumped on board with that one because that was a natural additive to Syrahs and to make traditional Rhone wines. Mm-hmm. But the Picpoul Blanc was one of those obscure Rhone varieties that I decided, well, this was what was available. I also looked at the time and trying to find Vermentino or Albarino and Verdeo and those varieties, and they just weren't available in quantity. Yeah. And as far as the other reds, I'd always been intrigued with Nebbiolos, being the king of grapes of Italy, or the emperor of grapes, I call it. They seem to want to outdo the French all the time. So I guess if you're going to outdo the king of reds being Cabernet, you would call Nebbiolo the emperor of the reds.
Right.
And it's very much a problem child, very difficult vine to tame. It's very vigorous, and I'm still trying to get my arms around it to figure out just exactly what the best training is. I do know as in any grape, you want to go for concentrated flavors. So you want to minimize the crop load on the vineyard. And the vineyard I put in is a high density vineyard, which allows for very heavy crop loads if you want to go that direction. And I decided, no, I wanted to go for the super quality. So I keep crop load down to under 2 tons an acre, which gives you a nice concentration of flavor. Mm-hmm. Carmenere is a grape that does very well at my site. It presents virtually no problems at all viticulturally. It's very easy for me to grow. It's easy to tame and seems to ripen just at the right time. It has a tremendous flavor profile. Pinot Noir is a variety that I've always enjoyed, so I put that in my vineyard. And I made sure I got the Pommard clone, which is, I feel, the best clone from the Burgundy region of France. Of course, they have all the other clones available now, the Dijon clones, but I always thought the Pommard was the best. And I'd had experience in Southern California, as well as in Sonoma, growing Pinot Noir when I was there, and in San Luis Obispo. And I knew what the differences were in climate. The Southern California, Southern Santa Barbara area, they like to proclaim that they're growing all their Pinot in fog-bound, cool climate, but really, I'd say that only accounts for maybe 10% of what they grow. The majority of it, once you get very far inland, becomes very hot, very similar to what we have in the Yakima Valley. So it tends to make a riper, spicier style of Pinot Noir, and very smooth and very consistent. So you don't have quite all the ups and downs that say you would have in Oregon when they get the rainy season hitting too early in the fall. That always gives them big headaches for their crop, whereas Yakima Valley, I don't have that problem.
No.
And then I put in some Aglianico and Sangrantino, a couple Italian grapes that Sangrantino, I just had that one time at a restaurant and fell in love with it. Right, reminded me a great deal of Cabernet and its character. And then the Aglianico is just a big, bold, grippy red. And I decided, well, I need to play with these things, see what I can do. I found that there was a good marriage between the Aglianico and the Sangrantino. Get the fruit-forward character of the Sangrantino, and you get all that big grip and bold flavor of the Aglianico. So it makes a really tremendous food wine. And then to satisfy the sweet tooth, I put in orange muscat. I'd grown muscat canelli before, and I decided I wanted to get into another muscat variety, and always enjoyed the orange flavor of the orange muscat. It has a distinct orange appeal to it, not only in the color, but as well as in the flavor. And the black muscat was always a fun grape to play with. It has kind of a rose petal quality to it, and it's has a very interesting history in that it was actually developed in England. It was one of those Victorian age experiments where they initially were playing with things in hot houses, and this made a very interesting muscat variety. It's a very large cluster and very easy to grow. So, and then having the unusual flavor it has makes it very, I like to turn it into a port, which allows me to keep that sweetness and also accentuate the rose petal quality of the fruit. And in doing so, I don't put it in oak at all. So it's actually a stainless steel produced port. So that, and have a couple other little experiments on the property too. I have Mourvèdre and I have Terral-de-Go.
Oh.
And the Terral-de-Go, I currently have just let other growers come get cuttings so they can expand on that. And the Mourvèdre, I use that as a kind of a little showpiece in front of the winery because it makes big, impressive vines, and nice large clusters. Makes nice kind of interesting addition when I add it into any of my other reds. So that's the history of the grape growing and the grape varieties I use.